It's almost as American as baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. So why was milk suffering a steady decline in consumption? More important, what could be done to reverse milk's freefall? To answer these questions, 40 California milk processors formed the California Milk Processor Board in 1993. According to Executive Director Jeff Manning, a processor or commodity board is usually created out of desperation.
Everybody pretends it's not happening. They kind of want to look the other way and deny it. And then at some point in time, the industry gets together and says, gosh, you know, this brand stuff isn't working at all. We're all losing. The pie's getting smaller. We better do something. And then they all sit down at the table and say, let's form a commodity board. So yes, we were formed because the per capita consumption of milk in California has been going down for 20 or 30 years.
Jeff knew he faced a significant challenge.
Because you had this incredible influx of, obviously, the sodas, but then the new age beverages, the Snapples and the isotonics, the Gatorades, and then all of this bottled water stuff, you know, coming in, and lots of things happening that didn't exist 15 years ago. So the decline was very, very serious.
Previously a senior vice president with Ketchum Advertising, Manning faced some obstacles unique to commodities like milk, not the least of which was a relatively paltry marketing budget of $23 million.
The non-alcoholic beverage category spends a couple $2 billion a year promoting its products. And it is the most sophisticated, I mean, Coke, Pepsi, the most sophisticated marketers in the world.
Food commodity marketing traditionally focuses on the issue of health, and past milk promotional campaigns had been no exception.
Milk is good for you. Now, it was expressed different ways in different places, but the bottom line was milk is good for you. Well, the problem remains, that 92 or 3% of the people already believed milk was good for you. So it was like, good, I'm going to come and tell you now that milk is good for you. You believe it already. You have no issues with it whatsoever. And I'm going to ask you to drink more milk. It's like, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
To help him turn things around, Jeff Manning enlisted the services of the San Francisco agency of Goodby, Silverstein and Partners.
Many advertisers, clients, say they want their advertising agencies to be marketing partners, promotional partners, and think of merchandise ideas and in-store ideas and stuff. And I don't feel that way. I feel that's a client's job. Now, I take ideas from anybody, but the agency's job is first and foremost produce brilliant advertising. And if they do that, then I'm thrilled.
Goodby Silverstein principal Jeffrey Goodby explains the approach his agency took.
We did things like putting a video camera inside a refrigerator that recorded people coming in to get milk with their morning cereal, coming in to get milk to put in their coffee in the morning here. And we took all the milk out of the refrigerator, and so you'd see the door open and their faces would fall, and they'd use some four-letter word and leave the scene in a huff. And we did research like that. We did a lot of focus groups, and so my role was to try to turn all of that research and the findings and what we decided the groups are saying into creative work, ultimately.
One thing they quickly learned is that milk is closely associated with certain foods.
Very few times do you hear someone say, whoa, I really feel like a glass of milk. What they say is, God, I could use a bowl of cereal. I need my Honey Nut Cheerios. Or, Oreos. I want my Oreos. Okay? Or it's 11 o'clock at night, and they say, God, you know, Mom, could you make those refrigerated cookie dough things from Pillsbury? So when that happens, people then start entering a world where milk wins. Milk wins because nothing tastes as good with those cookies or that cereal than milk does. That was half a strategy. That wasn't wrong, but it was half a strategy. What the agency did, Goodby Silverstein did, was say, well, yeah, but there's nothing very exciting about that. That's kind of a food and milk yum-yum thought.
We knew we were going to do something with the idea that people notice milk when they run out of it, and that effect got turned up if you had a cookie or some cereal to eat. We knew we were going to do something with that. But I don't think that that was particularly new. I mean, I think focusing on deprivation in absence of everything else was really a big, interesting development.
We found out that milk only became crucial to people when they ran out. Very interesting observation. So it evolved from a food and milk yum-yum strategy to what we affectionately call milk deprivation.
One day, and this was totally serendipity, one day we were getting ready to do this presentation, and Carol Winkler, who was the planner on the account, asked me what she should write on this particular foam core board that was going to lead into this part of the presentation. And I said, I don't know, just put something like "got milk" on it, question mark, okay? And she said, well, how about "got enough milk"? And I said, no, just put "got milk" and just leave it like that. And so she wrote it on this board, and I got into the presentation, and I was looking at this board and just thinking to myself, it doesn't have to be too much more complicated than that.
That was the birthplace, if you would, of Got Milk. That is, Got Milk only came out of us saying to people, do you have enough milk? Which was kind of a long, wordy, boring way of saying it. So we said, hey, got milk? Meaning, do you have enough? Or you better go out and buy some more. And that was the birthplace of Got Milk, was milk deprivation.
The deprivation strategy translated into an advertising campaign that paired milk with its perfect complements, including cereal, chocolate chip cookies, and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The creative twist, however, was to deprive the main character of milk.
We didn't try to tell people anything about milk that wasn't true. Milk deprivation has always been, and always will be, a big pain. And it's funny. I mean, it's funny what happens when you run out of milk. That's the power of this, and great execution. The product's fine. The product is a wonderful product. It's highly regulated. It's good for you. That's not the magic of this. The magic of this is that we've found a place that virtually everybody from a 3-year-old to a 93-year-old can laugh and say, oh, I've been there. I've done that. I know, oh, it's horrible. That's the power of Got Milk. It's true. Running out of milk is a pain.
Goodby Silverstein partner John Steele, who supervised much of the research, explains it this way.
I think Got Milk tapped into something in consumer minds and hearts very, very quickly, because it found a way of talking about their relationship to milk that none of them had, that was latent for everybody, but nobody had ever articulated before. You know, it stated the obvious in a very humorous and compelling way, and people immediately bonded with it. And in the end, I think that's what advertising does. It creates relationships between brands and consumers.
The original focus of the campaign was television.
We conceived of a campaign of mini stories. If you can imagine little teeny novels, little teeny stories, short stories, that were 30 to 60 seconds long. And in each one of those stories, a wholly independent character, they're not linked to each other, they weren't linked to each other anyway, finds himself having his food, preparing his food, getting his food somehow, and then running out of milk and being tormented, or tortured, whichever.
The first spot established the tone for the entire campaign.
You have this scholarly young man who's living in this weird apartment, and he's got every piece of memorabilia in the world about Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, who I didn't know who Aaron Burr was, I'm sorry to say, and knew everything, and ends up getting a phone call from a radio station asking the question of his life for $10,000, who shot Alexander Hamilton? And of course he knows, but because he just took this enormous bite of peanut butter and doesn't have any milk, his answer is Aaron Burr. And of course, he doesn't get his $10,000.
The Aaron Burr spot set a high standard for both the agency and for consumers.
I think that what we try to do here is a couple of very simple things, really. One, to treat people at their best, not to use the lowest common denominator when we talk to them, but to try to use the highest one and kind of approach people in a way that they like to be approached. So you know, we expect people to give us a lot of attention. We expect them to understand, maybe not know who Aaron Burr is right away, but to follow the commercial enough to kind of get the mechanism and understand the humor. And hopefully the next time that piece of information will be in their heads and they won't have to even think about it again.
We've always believed that advertising works best when it aims at the highest common denominator of taste and intelligence. You know, most advertising we see, unfortunately, is based on the lowest common denominator. And that's much easier to do. It takes a long time often to figure out what the highest common denominator is, but if you find it, people will rise to its level.
While the primary emphasis is on TV, Got Milk is a thoroughly integrated campaign.
I think that the relative spend and the degree to which people talk about those different media would lead me to suppose that television actually had the lion's share in the effect of the campaign. But it's also possible in the end that the reason people bought more milk wasn't because of the television, but it was because of the little checkout dividers that say Got Milk that reminded them at the last minute when they were in a grocery store to buy more. Maybe it was the little shelf talkers in the cookie or cereal section. I don't know. Most likely it was a combination of all of those things.
Outdoor also played a prominent role.
If there's not enough milk in the refrigerator, then our efforts to get people to consume it clearly can't be fully successful. Outdoor is there to remind people on the way home, excuse me, to buy more milk. In a sense, if you don't buy it now, you're going to have to buy it at 11 o'clock tonight. So wouldn't it be easier to just pull off and get your milk on the way home? Once it's in the fridge, then the television helps pull it off the shelf and into people's glasses or bowls, as the case might be. So outdoors purchase, television is consumption.
Co-op was another critical component of the Got Milk campaign.
We reached out to all of the major food companies in the United States and had a very simple proposition. We have $22 million to spend in the state of California, and we'd like to sell more of your product. Would you like to work with us?
Jeff went to General Mills. We said, Jeff, do you think we could use a real cereal box? He said, I don't know, let's try it. So we went to General Mills and read them the scripts, and they said, oh, we'd love to be in those commercials. Those are great commercials. So we got to use, you know, Cheerios and Wheaties boxes in all the commercials. But while he was there, he said to them, maybe there's some way we could do some stuff together, you know, because milk and cereal go together so well. Why don't we co-op some outdoor together?
And we both won. We both won. They sold more cereal, we sold more milk.
Eventually, we did something with the Trix Rabbit, of course, on TV, and that was a real coup. And then suddenly, like, we began to think all the characters of advertising are really open for us to use if we think this way. It was a pretty interesting mechanism, and so we started to use Snap, Crackle, and Pop, you know, and we did something with the Girl Scouts.
The promotion program just opened up all sorts of doors. General Mills, Quaker, Kellogg's, Keebler's, Nabisco, Pillsbury, Entenmann's, all sorts of companies.
Got Milk was obviously a creative success, but did it sell more milk?
We do a tracking study, a usage tracking study, have done it from before the campaign started all the way through to today. 7 percentage points more people say they're having milk yesterday, same number of times. So that's a pretty hard number and a pretty good number for us. And the ounces of milk they've consumed actually is edged up a little bit.
In the process, an amazing thing happened. Got Milk, a slogan for a commodity, became a brand.
In September of 95, excuse me, we licensed the Got Milk campaign nationally to the dairy groups. So all of a sudden now it was national. It wasn't just California. Got Milk was running nationally. And when that happened, it became so obvious that we had a brand in many ways.
We were quite assumptive and said, you know, we're going to be a brand, and we're going to be a brand very quickly. And did a lot of things beyond advertising to make that happen. In the deals that Jeff did with other companies for joint promotions, you know, with people like Nabisco and General Mills, Pillsbury and so on. In the very early licensing of the Got Milk line for clothing.
The best testimony is we've had kids here in California ask that we know because we did groups and we found out, ask their mom if they could have got milk, a glass of got milk. So I guess it's become a brand.
As you might expect, nobody involved with the Got Milk campaign is taking its success for granted.
That mechanism, the guy with his mouth full of something saying mook, mook, you know, became kind of tired. People predicted it. Even though, you know, they haven't stopped liking it yet, you could see that there was a day coming when it was going to get a little more predictable, a little harder to surprise people. And so we wanted to put a little bit of a different, come at it from a little different angle to kind of refresh that mechanism a little bit.
So what we did was, in the words of one consumer, we upped the deprivation ante, okay? Because before it had been individuals, one person, maybe two people, deprived of milk. We created an entire town that just doesn't work because there's no milk.
It's not to change the campaign. It's still based on that same core idea that it's a very bad thing to be without milk.
It's a town called Drysville, and it's the town without milk.
And we're never really clear about why it has no milk, whether it's been outlawed or, you know, whether there's something's gone wrong.
And it had a little bit of a Twin Peaks kind of feel to it. There was a place that was damned, you know, something was wrong, and the people couldn't do anything about it.
For the Got Milk team, creating a place where something is very wrong is just part of the process of doing things very right.
You have to be doing something now. You have to be producing results and visible things out there right now. And I think that keeps us all focused.
And I never, ever, ever lose track of who I'm paid for and what I'm doing here. I'm here to sell more milk.
But in the end, if our advertising doesn't help move a client's business forward, we're all wasting our time.
In 1985, Levi Strauss & Company found itself up against the greatest marketing challenge in its 130-year history. The company that literally invented jeans back in the gold rush days, whose double arcuate pattern was America's first apparel trademark, and whose 501 jeans had become an icon of freedom, adventure, and independence, discovered that its bread-and-butter customer, the American male teenager, was growing up and out of the jeans market.
If you look back to the photograph of Woodstock in the Asgers farm in 1969, those kids, those baby boomers, the children who were born between 1946 and 1964, who were wearing any clothes at all, were wearing Levi's jeans. With the adoption of Levi's jeans by this massive group of baby boom kids, 80 million kids, really began the phenomenal rise of Levi Strauss & Company as an international, global colossus in the apparel business. That's the good news. The bad news is that as these kids grew, as they grew older, their propensity, their proclivity, their need for jeans, 6, 7, 8 pairs of jeans a year, began to decline. And we started to see this in the early 1980s as the baby boomers began to enter their 20s and we began to see the aging of this baby boomer as a major challenge for Levi Strauss & Company and for the Levi's brand. So we set ourselves out to answer the big question, how to keep the baby boom generation in a Levi's brand when they weren't wearing so many pairs of Levi's jeans. And the answer was Dockers.
Creating a new brand from scratch was a formidable challenge. Steve Goldstein was there from the start.
How do you get these kids out of blue jeans and into Dockers product? The first thing marketers do is to position the product, to envision and to position a product. And we asked ourselves, what equity could we bring from the Levi's brand to the Dockers brand that would make this transition quite easy? And what we did was to develop a product that in many ways was similar, akin to, in the same family of the jeans. It was 100% cotton. It was a very comfortable product. It was an unpretentious product. It didn't have a lot of colors. There were basically muted colors in tan and green and in brown and in black and in navy, but mostly in the traditional tan color. The quality of the product was quite high, and the durability of the product was quite good, all of which linked back to the essential values that this jeans generation had associated with the Levi's brand, were associated with the Dockers brand. So in positioning Dockers, we put it in the family of Levi Strauss & Company, and it made it quite easy for a jeans-loving teenager to become a Dockers brand-loving young adult.
When Steve moved to the Levi's brand in 1992, Robert Hansen assumed the marketing responsibilities for Dockers.
What he was able to do was, one, is to create this amazing emotional connection, kind of nailed the emotional underpinnings of what was appealing to baby boomers at the time the brand was launched. And when I joined, in fact, Steve and the research director at the time talked about having created this kind of fantasy world they called Dockers World, which was a place that men kind of associated with the brand, where they could escape and relax and be their best selves, be really at ease with themselves.
The first commercials that Robert referenced, which we ran from 1986 to 1990, basically were a half a dozen guys sitting around talking about their lives. It had nothing to do with the product. The camera made love to the product, but the subject matter of the conversation was basically what's new, school friends, how's your life going, what was your first date about, and it was an intimate setting where guys could be guys in the absence of women. They could be honest with themselves, let their hair down. Those of them who still had hair could let their hair down. And the responses from the men in the audience went along like this. That's me. That's me all over. When we get together with the guys, that's what we talk about. I like those guys. I could be one of those guys.
But from a branding standpoint, it was important for the company to create Dockers as a separate and unique identity, which is really targeted to this slightly, the beginning of midlife stage, if you will.
We considered not using the Levi's brand at all. But what we realized was that it was sort of like trying to put a space shuttle up without any launch rockets. So we had, if you consider the Dockers brand as a space capsule, it's a better terminology. The space capsule, and the Levi's brand as the launch vehicle. For the first several years, and Robert can say when the launch vehicle dropped away, the Levi's brand launched the Dockers brand into orbit. And the reason it was so powerful a launch is what we had discussed earlier. The love that this baby boom generation had for the Levi's brand enabled us to get instant credibility.
When Dockers was launched, the dominant name in men's pants was Hager, with a market share of about 80%.
With Dockers, instead of assaulting the front door of this castle, we did something which the textbooks describe as flanking. Okay? We went over here and we started to build this little castle, just a little castle outside the gates of the Hager Castle. And we could just feel people in the Hager Castle kind of looking out over, what are those guys doing over there? Don't worry about it. Those are jeans people. Forget it. They don't know what they're doing. And then it got a little bit bigger. And they said, that's nothing. It's only a $100 million business. So what we were doing was we basically, without announcing this, okay, these are principles here, without announcing this to the world, we are taking on Hager with this casual pant. We didn't do that. We just started building this little business over here, flanking Hager. We established a new category. We made up this category called casual pants.
The Dockers brand was a smash success, but it wasn't long before baby boomers, the original Dockers target market, began reaching their 40s, and Dockers found its own castle under assault.
Steve had done such a great job of positioning the brand to the baby boomer generation. As they began to age, they basically took the brand's affinity with them. And back in 1992 was the first time we started to hear consumers say, well, Dockers is a good brand, but that's really my dad's brand. And these are 25 to 35-year-olds, the core target that Steve originally launched the brand to.
We have a challenge to continue to keep it relevant to a new wave of kids who are coming in. We call them the echo boomers. They're the children of the baby boomers. So as strong a link that we've been able to build with baby boomers with our brand, we have to build an equally strong link with the echo boomers. There's 72 million of them coming along now, and that's a big challenge.
We did such a great job of launching this brand and got it to $1 billion, but then we kind of got a little fat and happy, if you will. And in 1992, the Hager brand actually came back and innovated the casual pant category underneath us by launching this product wrinkle-free, which we at the time felt wasn't appropriate for the Dockers brand because it in fact flew in the face of a lot of the values that we had established from a product perspective. We were 100% cotton, natural, easy to wear, even a little bit rumpled khakis, and Hager was introducing this product, no iron, hard crease, dressier casual pants. And we felt, let's, like Steve talked about, we looked over the castle wall and we said, don't worry about that. But what we learned is they were able to steal about 6 share points in 2 years because they innovated this product because they were listening to consumers again. Consumers really didn't love ironing their khakis. And it's a very small example, and in fact, when we actually just basically decided to introduce wrinkle-free products into our line, we captured that share back plus about 3 or 4 points. So the brand actually never really suffered a great deal, but we did not innovate enough.
Don't try to go after somebody's main course if you can go off and create a new dish for someone outside. One
lesson that we've learned is you basically have to always be introducing the next wave. So if Dockers, the introduction of the brand was the first wave, the introduction of wrinkle-free by one of our competitors, in my opinion, was the second wave in this category. What we've focused on is the third wave, is where we've been trying to rebuild and extend the khakis category. We like to call this idea as kind of creating a khakis-based wardrobe or a khakis continuum from dress up that you'd wear to work to dress down that you'd wear on the street, because khakis do have a kind of a multiplicity of usage occasions. And in doing so and focusing on khakis and the street credible style of khakis, the individual style of khakis, plus the fact that you can wear them to work and wear them out on the street or on the weekends when you really want to say something about yourself as an individual, that focusing on that next wave has enabled us to capture the spirit and the attention of the next generation of khakis consumers. But it took success and a little bit of a competitive kick in the butt to get us moving again. And the one lesson I certainly have taken from that experience is you're never too good to kill your winners and to focus on your consumers' absolute need.
There are 3 things that are true of all great brands that we learned, we knew, and we reconfirmed along the way in building the Dockers brand and building the Levi's brand for that matter. The first is that awareness of the brand is critical. Awareness through direct communications with the consumer, awareness through packaging, the way in which what we call packaging, the paper stuff that hangs on the product, building an awareness at retail, as Robert referenced, with building shops and environments in which the consumer will be at home when they're shopping for our products.
The Dockers brand was the first brand really to bring concept shops and sort of the positioning of the brand in a physical form to retail. So when you walked into retail to buy the brand, you actually walked into Dockers world, if you will. It was a lifestyle presentation.
Secondly is positive associations. Awareness is a necessary but insufficient communications vehicle. If the communication is negative, all the awareness in the world is only going to hurt you. So we have to be sure that what people hear and know and learn and feel about our brands is positive. The quality is right, the colors are right, the lifestyle in which it's shown is right. It's the brand for me.
Clearly there's a core product association for the brand that we don't want to leave behind. And then they tend to talk about the brand as being real or genuine, as being easy to wear or effortless, or a product that you can wear to be at ease in. And they also talk about Dockers khakis as having the ability to kind of create, it's a canvas really for them to paint their own individual style with. So we would say the essence of the brand is, you know, the definitive khakis that express kind of a genuine, effortless style, if you will. So it's important to have that soul, and then our challenge has been to make that soul relevant for today's customer.
So aware, positive. The third is differentiation. You have to be successful in a brand, you have to have your own niche. It's not enough for people to be aware of your brand and to feel good about it if it's just like everybody else's brand. So you have to strive to create some point or points of difference, physical points of difference, emotional points of difference between your brand and everybody else's brand. And those three things are really the tools, the guidelines for every person who is involved in establishing and building brands. And it can, in terms of differentiation, positioning is critical. Unless you can build a fence, a rather narrow, or a rather small fence around the position for your brand, you will not be successful in differentiating your brand from all others. If you try to be everything to everybody, you'll be nothing to no one.
Wear this brand because it enables the best of you to come out. Don't wear this brand because it paints you, it paints a certain picture on you for people to perceive, because what we want you to do is to be your best self, and we're the brand that celebrates that and those values with you. And that's what makes this brand unique. I think the Levi's brand and the Dockers brand unique in the fashion world, because most fashion brands are about more trying to paint something on yourself rather than letting the spirit that you have, which is unique to you, come out.
Our brands are not about, I'm okay because I'm wearing this or that designer. That's not what we're about at all. Our brands are about, you understand yourself, you understand your own individuality, you understand that you are a unique and original person, and those characteristics that are yours resonate with the characteristics that are ours. Levi's brand is the original gene, the quintessential American gene, the iconic gene. But every individual who wears one is in himself or herself a wonderful, original person. And that's the linkage that we have with the Levi's brand. And also the same can be said of the Dockers brand.
Our communication strategy has evolved from the success of the original campaign, which is the one campaign beyond the current campaign, Nice Pants, that consumers still have top-of-mind recall about. What we've really focused on is basically articulating that not only can you feel real and genuine, not only can it be an effortless and easy experience for you, but it can also be a stylish brand. But it's not about fashion style, it's about individual style. It's about you wearing the product, not the product wearing you.
The single most valuable asset that Levi Strauss & Company has is its little coterie of brands, the Levi's brand, the Dockers brand, and the new Slates brand. and everything we do, and everyone here who is involved in any aspect of the company constantly thinks about what we can do to build our brand.
And the challenge for you is to really understand how to retain what's at the core of your brand, but be relevant for today's customer and tomorrow's customer. It's not that difficult to think about. It's very difficult to do on an ongoing basis because it forces yourself to think. You have to force yourself to think outside of the box and to kill things that you're really happy with and comfortable with.
Brands are like trees in that respect. They have roots. They grow naturally. Sometimes you get a branch that wants to grow off in a wrong direction, and you have to be, even though that branch would provide wood, you have to be disciplined enough to prune that branch if it doesn't conform to the shape of the tree. It's a good sort of analogy to think about, that brands are living things that need to be fed, nurtured, pruned, and shaped continually in order to grow.
It's a calibration process. You've got to try new things in order to figure out how far you can push it.
You have to understand people, and you have to understand what's going on in the world in the broadest possible sense.
A brand that's been the greatest individual launch in modern American apparel history, world apparel history for that matter, still needs to kill its winners, to innovate, and not allow its competitors to flank it.
When Phil Knight started selling running shoes from the trunk of his Plymouth Valiant in the early 1960s, he had no idea that Nike would one day rank among the strongest brands in the United States. The Oregon running enthusiast believed that serious athletes had specialized footwear needs that were not being addressed by the two companies dominating the athletic shoe industry, Adidas and Puma. To fill this void, he enlisted his college track coach, Bill Bowerman, to design running shoes based on athletes' unique requirements. And to ascertain their needs, Knight traveled from track meet to track meet, talking to athletes in their language and getting feedback on his shoes. Thus began a dialogue between Nike and serious athletes that would continue to this day.
When Nike started, it had a very clear vision of what this company was going to stand for, what this brand's values were going to be. I think that was very clear from the outset. And that has continued to be the case over 25 years. And if you look at how it started, it was an athlete and a coach building product for other athletes and building a better product so those athletes could perform better.
Within a decade, annual sales of the company, then known as Blue Ribbon Sports, went from $8,000 to $1 million. During that time, it pioneered several innovations, including the first shoe with a lightweight but durable nylon upper. In 1971, Blue Ribbon changed its name to Nike after the winged goddess of victory and adopted the famous swoosh as its logo. But the company that was built on a grassroots connection with athletes was reluctant to get into mass marketing, as evidenced by Phil Knight's first meeting with Nike's longtime ad agency.
There's a funny story about that in the early days of Phil Knight going down to the offices of Wieden and Kennedy. And according to Dan Wieden, the first thing that Phil Knight said to Dan Wieden was, I hate advertising. And that certainly got Dan's attention. But I think what Phil was really getting at is that, not that he really hates advertising, but what he prefers is a very intimate dialogue, one-on-one pretty much, athlete to athlete.
In 1973, Nike began signing well-known runners to wear and endorse its shoes. And from the beginning, athletes were chosen for more than their athletic abilities.
Because Nike is a sports company, we use athletes. Sometimes I wonder why cola companies do or why hamburger companies do, but I know why we do. And when we choose athletes, we are looking for people who are not only great champions, but have some character about them that draws people to them. And that takes a lot of different forms.
The message Nike athletes conveyed was clear. Nobody knows running like Nike.
You go back to the early days and how it started, and this brand is all about building products for athletes, high-performance products, very authentic products, innovative products, bringing new technology to athletes so they can perform better. And I think that is what has been the foundation of this brand. And in everything that we do in communications, we want to communicate those values of the Nike brand. That what we're doing is to provide innovative products to athletes so they can perform at a higher level in their sport.
The key to Nike is that everyone there really knows what the mission of the company is. We have a really incredibly simple mission, which is serve the athlete. So anything you do, if you're in product development, that means you have to make sure the products really work, that they're really great for whatever sport you are assigned to. If you're in the communications area, it means you have to communicate with an authenticity about the sports experience, what athletes know to be true of what it feels like to win a basketball game or run a marathon or whatever.
By 1980, sales had reached $270 million, and that year Nike did what nobody thought possible. It passed Adidas to become the #1 athletic shoe company in the United States. But in the early 1980s, Nike made a mistake. With the popularity of running declining, the company underestimated the growing popularity of aerobics and fitness among women. Reebok's stylish soft leather aerobics shoes took the market by storm, and by 1986, Nike had lost its market share lead.
The 80s came along, and it was the fitness boom that transformed the athletic footwear and apparel business. And that's what Reebok understood and translated into products and communication to consumers, because they sort of understood that older woman who was involved in aerobics and for whom that was an important experience. And we kind of missed that, not because we don't understand women, but because we don't understand fitness in that sort of way. We're still the sports company. We're still over here. Like, if it's about, competing and winning and losing, we kind of get it, but a lot of the other finer points of the fitness thing we didn't get.
Nike learned a lesson from Reebok and responded with a new approach to put as much emphasis on consumers as it did on products, and to pay more attention to other sports, especially basketball.
The dynamics of running are very different than basketball as a business. So runners you need to reach in this very local way, because there isn't a lot of high-profile running on TV in America, except during the Olympics, whereas basketball is on TV all the time. And so an NBA strategy would be the centerpiece of any basketball strategy that you would have.
Nike signed a rookie NBA player to endorse a shoe featuring its new air cushioning technology. His name was Michael Jordan.
We've been very lucky. Signing Michael Jordan and working with Michael has been probably one of the most important things that's happened in the company's history. And what's come of that, it truly is amazing, and there's probably a little bit of luck involved. And what that allowed us to do with introducing Nike Air and what's become of Air Jordan.
As Nike branched into other sports, each was treated as a separate category, with sub-brands designed to appeal to market segments within each category. This time it was Reebok that got left at the starting gate. Riding a dynamic new campaign theme, Nike regained the U.S. market share lead in 1990.
The thing about Just Do It, which we always loved, is that it is as appealing a message to a world-class sprinter who needs to get 0.02 of a second off his or her time, as it is to someone who's sitting on the couch, like eating potato chips, thinking, okay, I should really go get some exercise. And so the Just Do It message has equal meaning across that entire spectrum of people that might possibly get involved in sports. And That whole world is the world we operate in, not just the world of the elite athlete or just the world of the occasional jogger. We really want to be the sports company for everyone across the entire spectrum.
By 1991, when Michael Jordan led the Chicago Bulls to the first of 3 NBA titles, Nike sales passed the $3 billion mark. A stable of hundreds of athletes included some of the most unique figures in the world of sports.
What's fun about the way Nike looks at athlete endorsements, there's not one cookie cutter type of athlete. It's just someone who is engaging at a deeper level with people than just someone who happens to be great.
Advertising featuring Nike athletes is a vital part of the company's success, but it's only one component of a totally integrated marketing strategy.
When advertising is communicating the same thing as, say, retail marketing, when you go into a store and you're reminded of what you may have seen on TV or heard on the radio or read in a magazine, if that message coincides or is consistent with what you're seeing in store, which is consistent with how the product design strikes you, when all of that comes together and truly is integrated, I think it's the most powerful way to communicate with people.
While Nike's fortune soared in the United States, Europe was a different story.
Competition and sports mean different things around the world. So the United States, for instance, is a very competitive society and very athletic. People are really involved both as a spectator and as a participant in sports. And that's not true in other parts of the world, so finding a way to make Nike relevant in a part of the world where people really don't participate in sports as much is a big challenge.
The challenge was trying to do it at a faster pace, I guess, in Europe than we did in the US. Because of that, we didn't really have the same heritage to build off of, and we were trying to do things at a quicker pace. So because of that, I mean, there were challenges in finding the right athletes to wear our products, working with the athletes, having a real presence in key European sports, because that was a real essential part of how the brand was shaped in the US.
For instance, in Germany, you can be the brand of Michael Jordan, go ahead, but that doesn't make you the brand that I buy or that I want, because the sport that I buy and I want, those products probably have to do with football, European football, soccer, not with basketball. So we needed to make sure that we had meaning in the sports that people really did in that country.
We would like the brand to stand for the same values in the US as it does in Spain or Singapore or Australia. I think around the world we'd want the brand to represent the same similar values. Now, how we go about achieving that is going to vary market to market.
You're not so much trying to understand the country as much as you're trying to understand a sport, and then you can take that to a lot of places. So that our soccer business, for instance, is growing very dramatically now because we really applied ourselves to understanding what do soccer players need in terms of equipment, shoes, apparel, and other things, and also what is it they love about the game.
The biggest lesson I've learned is that you know, if you're really going to touch people and create this emotional bond, you have to do that as close to the ground, as organically as possible. You really have to be in the marketplace. You have to truly understand consumers in that marketplace.
With our advertising in Europe in the early part of the 90s, we used things that were almost too universal, or we were going in with this global approach to sports without really pulling forward some of the local heroes or local features of the game. So now we're much more conscious about that balance between global communications and local communications.
We now have a strong regional team in place that works with all of the countries across Europe, and we have also strong teams in place in each of the countries. It consists of a full marketing staff, so we have a marketing manager and advertising manager, developing the plans and working with the agency to really create very relevant communication with each of the different sports categories that we're doing business in.
Having established a beachhead in Europe, Nike is concentrating on new markets in Eastern Europe, China, India, and Latin America, on new sports categories like ice hockey and inline skating, and on new opportunities in apparel and women's sports. It's an aggressive agenda, but Nike has never been afraid to take chances.
We've made our mistakes, but one thing that I think is great about Nike is that it is a culture that is not afraid to make mistakes. And I think that there's an understanding that if you're willing to take risks, if you're willing to make mistakes, if you're willing to dare what the other team won't dare to do, oftentimes you come out on top.
We still have the values that we had when we were a small company. It just so happens that those values have helped us become a big company.
Nike also understands what their brand is about and why it's strong.
I think it's honest, I think it's clear, I think it's simply stated. I think it's been very true over the years. It hasn't really wavered. And I think it just comes back to just a fundamental belief of what the brand is about and what it is going to provide to people that buy the brand.
We think there are three keys. The first is innovative products. The second is focused segments. And by that, it means we do running or tennis or basketball. We don't just do shoes and clothes. So we really focus on the sports experience. And the third key is emotional ties, really trying to understand what do people love about the sports experience, either as a participant or a spectator.
When you look at the Nike brand, it really isn't a rational brand. You know, it is an emotional brand, and it's deeply rooted in the emotional power, the context of sports, which is a very rich palette to work from, really. I mean, the emotion of sports and all that that represents is pretty much a universal thing.
A new campaign theme to replace the overwhelmingly successful Just Do It indicates Nike's focus on the future. But there's little danger they'll forget where they came from or what got them here.
In the very early days of Nike, we signed a lot of ads and posters. In those days, we only did print advertising with the line, "There is no finish line," which Just Do It is sort of a twist on the same thing. It's a little bit more about personal empowerment, but it's still the thought that this is about you and you have to really keep at it. There is no finish line is something that we still use from time to time. We use it on a lot of internal communications, but we also use it occasionally externally. And I would expect that Just Do It would become like that, would be part of the Nike canon, so to speak.
Yeah, Nike is doing very well right now and is in a leadership position worldwide. And you know, for us, it's how do we continue to improve upon what we're doing. And I think every day is a new challenge. And it's not sitting back and resting on our laurels, but it's thinking of how we can continue to improve, continue to bring fresh thinking to product, continue to provide people with innovative technology, and in our case, continuing to improve upon the advertising that we've done.
We don't want to be vulnerable to people actually building a better mousetrap. If a better mousetrap is to be built, that better happen at our place.
In 1971, Starbucks opened its first store in Seattle's Pike Place Public Market. At a time when canned supermarket coffee was the standard, selling fresh roasted whole beans in a special store was a revolutionary concept.
Starbucks is the brand that pioneered the espresso revolution in America. That introduced the language, the lingo, that created the coffee renaissance, changed the way people thought about something that was very old, that was more associated with habit and routine and not thoughtfulness or discernment. Elevated the taste and brought a measure of a third place to America. It's not work, it's not home, it's somewhere in between that people can go and pause, literally have a break, coffee break.
This is rich with human experience, creativity, inspiration. The coffee house culture, which has been around for centuries, is all about personal discovery. It's about re-energization, and it's about connection and community. So I think it's a very good thing that Starbucks sees that opportunity and finds a way to do it on a mass scale that is still personal and touches the spirit of what the coffee house is all about, which is, in its best form, very timeless.
We also wanted to build resonance and relevance, which is unique, strong, and favorable associations that people will have to the Starbucks brand. It's the emotional side of what coffee house culture represents. It's the emotional rewards of coffee. Coffee is a product that people love.
But Starbucks invested in more than just a great product. It also invested in its people.
So the roots of Starbucks had been in great coffee and also people that were dedicated to telling the world about that great coffee. So Starbucks was not somebody setting out to build a great brand. Starbucks was this honest, true company that had deep roots and deep commitment to our art or our music, whatever you want to call it.
We built the brand by trying to create a sense of trust with our employees, who we call partners because they're all owners. What we tried to do is create for them a sense of that they really had a voice in the building of this company. And because we're in such a high-touch business, where our people touch our customers every single day, they believed passionately in the soul of Starbucks. They believed passionately in the quality of our coffee and what this company stands for. That it became very easy for them and very natural for them to transfer that to them, to the customer.
Another factor in Starbucks' phenomenal success is a most unorthodox approach to marketing.
The equity of the brand, which has evolved to such a strong position over the last 10 years, has occurred without any traditional advertising and traditional marketing program. In fact, we have spent more money on training over the last 10 years than we have on advertising. And so how have we built this brand in the sense of loyalty? 5.5 million customers a week come through our stores. Many customers come back 18 times a month, twice a day. What's going on here?
We've struggled with how to communicate because on a most fundamental level, it's about people connecting, it's about heart, warmth, intimacy, shared experience. That's hard to communicate with advertising. And so I think we've discovered a lot about the limits of advertising.
A major component of the Starbucks marketing strategy is building a one-to-one relationship with customers.
Delivering on a positive experience face-to-face with someone in a store is probably 100 times more effective than the best claim you could ever make in a piece of advertising.
The company also developed 4 flexible and cost-effective store designs and injected elements of romance and mythology into the Starbucks experience.
Marketing is part science and part art. You can't do anything unless you have the science underneath you. It's the products and how to engineer them and produce them and get them to market and analyze performance, the finance, and all of the hard disciplines that go into building the business is part of the science. The art is connecting it with people in a way that resonates. And when you get into the higher forms of marketing, it's really a storytelling art. How do I tell a story about this product or about the brand that is interesting, that is arresting, that is memorable, that makes people think or laugh or just connects with them.
To answer that question, Starbucks turned to architect-artist Wright Massey.
We're in the business of entertainment, if you want to think about it that way. Storytelling is a form of entertainment. Art's a form of entertainment. Music is a form of entertainment. What we had to do is put some relevance behind the logo. We knew that Starbucks was first made of Moby Dick, of the story Moby Dick, and that was about it. The siren was the mythological figure that was somewhat mischievous in nature. She lures sailors to their death on the rocks. That gave some spice to the story, as far as I was concerned. I don't really like that. And so that siren has become a real strong voice. It's very active, it's very romantic, and it allows the siren to move from the logo into the storytelling realm. And it helps romance and create aura for Starbucks, which I think is going to really build a brand. And then on top of that, we had, you could look at the coffees around the world. There were stamps in our stores. And that to me had a rich storytelling capability because the coffees come from different cultures. So the idea of cultural was a really strong thing to me.
We are taking a simple pleasure and wrapping around it a lot of imagination. The design of the stores, the music, the food, the language, the sound, the aroma when you walk in, the sound of the steaming wand are all part of the magic of what coffee brings to people.
The result is an experience uniquely attuned to the Starbucks consumer.
People are spending so much time alone, at home. We're so stressed out. We've got car phones, cell phones, faxes, we've got voicemails, and so the Starbucks stores become this haven where people really can relax, really can socialize. And because the coffee is such a social beverage and a conduit to all of this, the customer profile is very, very diverse.
A strong sense of social responsibility has further strengthened Starbucks' bond with its customers.
I don't want us to sit here in a corporate structure and not be in touch with both the support we get from the communities around the country and the need that we have and responsibility we have to give back. So we have been philanthropically involved for a long time in a number of ways, most specifically with AIDS hospices and food banks that are in close proximity to the stores in the communities in which they're located.
I think consumers today ask for much more from a company. They ask for the company to be more relevant. There are more and more product choices, more distribution channels, and they're looking for the differentiation, and they're looking, quite frankly, for the relevancy to them. Is this a brand that I think is in step with what's going on today?
In 1997, the Starbucks Foundation was created. Its primary focus is literacy.
There are 40 million Americans who are illiterate. More than half of them are under the age of 16. Many of them are young children. And since we have an opportunity to create a very unique dialogue with people all over America, the whole effort around the foundation in the initial stage is going to help try and educate and help young people read and write.
Short 2% foamy latte.
The emotional bond between Starbucks and its patrons has been instrumental in building brand equity.
I think there's an emotional connection that's going on in which people want to support a company whose values and the things that they stand for are compatible with their own. And because we're able to communicate that in the doing every day through our people, I think the customer has an attachment to the company that in fancy terms is called the equity of the brand.
Integrity of character, integrity of principle is of utmost importance in building a company, let alone a brand.
I think Starbucks, the name and the brand name, to me has become synonymous with, and if I had to pick one word, I'd probably say respect. I think it's respect for the product. I think Starbucks respects coffee far more than most any other company in the category. I think it's respect for the employees, the whole partner concept, stock ownership, all that. Clearly what Howard's tried to do is bring respect to the a 21st century business model in that way. And then finally, respect for customers. You know, a smoke-free environment, a clean place to visit, respect on the part of the barista to acknowledge someone's there and to encourage some sort of relationship. So I think that the brand today sort of stands maybe defined in a sense on this notion of respect, and it's a great building block. I think we can add a lot more to that and make it more relevant.
Sure, you want it ground or whole bean? Whole bean, please. Okay.
Starbucks realizes that staying in touch with its customers is an evolutionary process.
Especially as a merchant, as a retailer, we have to be in a position where we are constantly entertaining our customers, providing them with special moments, and in a sense surprising them. And which means that we can't possibly embrace the status quo. We have to keep pushing on that envelope and push for self-renewal and reinvention. And I think what you saw in that creative group is just that, not accepting the status quo is good enough.
Consumers have very little patience for brands that they think have worn out their welcome, or brands that have become disconnected from what consumers expect them to do. And I think what Nike's done, and Starbucks is doing now, which I think should serve as a reminder for the downside, is building an emotional connection, which I think is the cornerstone of a good brand.
When you build a successful model for what a business is, and it's a going concern, it's self-sustaining, that's really the greens fees to get into the game of branding. Then you have to ask yourself, how can I enhance it, expand it, channel it, refine it, build on it? And there's a trial and error process that goes with expanding the relevance of a core idea.
Creating new products through carefully selected joint ventures with companies like Dreyer's Grand Ice Cream has been an important part of the process.
The coffee flavor is richer and the ice cream is very, very premium, and it's just been a fabulous response. People are surprised and delighted by Starbucks entering that category, and I think that's surprising and delighting your customers is the key to keeping the brand glowing in the long run.
Starbucks has partnered with a number of companies, including Pepsi-Cola and Red Hook Ale. But it has rejected many more and is very careful about the company it keeps.
Joint ventures, to me, is simply Starbucks finding a way to optimize its marketing strategies by leveraging core competencies it doesn't have, or core competencies that it feels would be ineffective or inefficient to try and develop on its own, be it manufacturing or distribution or a direct store distribution system, such as the one that Dreyer's and Pepsi have for those two categories. So as we look at these partners, I think it's important that we don't see a redundancy. If we can do it on our own, we'll do it on our own.
It's important to recognize that in choosing an alliance, in choosing a partner, that the people have the same kind of commitment to quality, the same kind of values that we do. We've said no to hundreds of companies, quality companies, but they were not in the category or the channel that we felt were compatible with the equity of the brand. We want to make sure that we don't create Starbucks products in places that we feel are not compatible with the imagery of the company.
Starbucks utilized this philosophy in selecting Japan for its first store outside of North America.
Every place is new, every place is different, every place has its own challenges. You know, every country has its own import regulations, has its own labor regulations, has everything that's unique unto itself. And so we work with partners, sometimes licensees, sometimes joint ventures, to help us develop there.
We've tried to select our partners by the people, and we know sitting across from these people whether or not they are compatible with who we are. And it's ironic because I think in many ways we selected Japan as the first country because of the emergence of how strong that partner was. We might have gone to a different country if that partner was somewhere else.
The most important thing, you know, we're not going to ever share common cultures, but we do share and must share common values. And that's what we look for. Do they treat their people with respect and dignity? How do they feel about the products that they sell, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? We have to be in sync on those things.
Starbucks is optimistic about the potential for sustained growth, both at home and abroad.
As we look around the world and we see most adults drinking 2 cups of coffee every day, and most of it at a quality level that we think we can inherently improve upon, Starbucks is going to build a global business. And I think in saying that, it's important to recognize that in order to achieve that, we have to make sure that what we've done domestically is solid and we don't take our eye off the ball.
I'll tell you what I'd like to see happen. If I could go out 20 years from now, that the people in Japan, the people in Singapore, the people in Korea, the people in Taiwan, people that didn't know where Starbucks started would think that Starbucks started in Manila or started in Seoul or started in Taipei. And that's just about being there, putting roots down.
When the day is done, Starbucks still has many millions of cups of just basically good coffee to serve to people who've never had a really good cup of coffee.
At the same time, the company is aware of the perils of being perceived as a corporate giant.
Now the question is, and I think it's a real challenge for the company, is how do we maintain this unique intimacy with both our people and our customer as we've gotten this big? And that is the challenge. How can you build a company that's gotten this ubiquitous and stay small? We're trying to crack the code on that as we speak, and I'm very confident we'll be able to do it, but it's a very difficult challenge.
The other weakness, I guess it's more of a vulnerability than a weakness, is this notion that Starbucks is a megalithic brand and a huge chain. And I think that will probably never go away. I think any big successful company will always have that to deal with. But I think if we manage the human side of the equation and make sure that the people that represent us every day of the week, I think we'll be fine.
We've grown our business 9 consecutive years at 50% or better for both the top and bottom line. That's a very acute, aggressive climb. And when you do that, that kind of growth potentially could cover up a lot of mistakes. And I think one of the reasons why we've been able to fend off some of those very difficult hurdles is because many, many times it's the values and the culture of the company and the imprinting of the organization that has gotten us through.
A determination to maintain its core values, coupled with a willingness to reinvent itself, is a unique formula that bodes well for Starbucks.
Well, I hope that Starbucks is always a child and always childlike. I think we should always be inquisitive. We should always be willing to take risks. You know how a child, when you learn how to ski, you have no fear of falling at all. And I think Starbucks has to maintain that in order for it to be successful in the long term.
We are reinventing ourselves as we go, changing the way people think about coffee, the cold coffee, coffee ice cream, Frappuccino, have, I think, taken people by surprise. They thought of us as a great coffee shop brand, but all of a sudden they're doing something new. So innovation is a part of our brand strength.
I think that's where Starbucks can reinvent marketing in a sense, or at the very least dictate a battlefield from which it'd be really hard to compete against us. I think we can look at our retail platform, 1,400 stores, as laboratories. We have constant feedback loops on what customers are doing and how they're embracing the beverages, what works, what doesn't work.
Starbucks has the opportunity to become well, the chief protagonist of coffee culture in the world, and to become a lifestyle brand and not just a coffee company, to change the way that other companies think about business. But I think primarily we have a 25-year goal, and it's to become one of the more recognized and respected brands in the world.
Listening to Howard Schultz, it's hard to imagine Starbucks failing to achieve its goals.
there's going to be points in your life when you're going to have an idea and you're going to have a dream. And there's going to be people all around you who are going to tell you it can't be done. Don't do it. Don't leave the security of your current situation. The flip side of that is, don't be here 10 years from now or 20 years from now saying, I could have, I should have, I had that idea. Believe in your dreams and believe in yourself. And you know, I'm living proof. I am living the American dream, and I was born on the other side of the tracks. I grew up in a family where the odds on me being here are just incomprehensible. But I am here because the American dream is alive and well. And as competitive as the environment is for business people, I think the flip side of that is there probably has never been a greater time in the life of an entrepreneur today, because there's such opportunity in America today. And I would encourage people to truly seize the moment and believe in themselves and believe in their dreams.
The company, founded in 1802 as E.I. DuPont de Nemours, has changed dramatically. But over the course of 2 centuries, it has held fast to its core values.
We're almost 200 years old, and over those 200 years, we have built on the core values that we initiated almost 200 years ago: respect for the individual, respect for safety, health and the environment, honesty and ethics. We've built on those core values, and we've extended them through the years, through our products and through our businesses. We've got a very strong reputation as being a science and technology leader, strong reputation for innovation, which is where obviously our products come from. So those things, combined with our strong sense of community, of caring for people, being a good neighbor, and as many different lives as we've touched around the world, I think all of that put together has resulted in a very strong reputation for DuPont.
Originally founded to manufacture black powder, DuPont has simplified its name while exponentially diversifying the scope of its operations.
DuPont right now has about 2,000 trademarks. And we essentially are selling those trademarks into almost 200 countries. And they're all being brought to the consumer or the customer in the various markets that we sell into, because essentially we sell into every market that you can name with those 2,000 trademarks.
How has DuPont prospered for so long? And how has it become such a strong and respected brand?
When you've got the big oval there standing behind the product, you're instantly credible, because they know we've been around for a long time. We're going to be around for a long time.
We have integrity, just bone-crunching integrity.
While longevity and ethics are certainly part of the formula, so are technology and innovation.
Every company has a culture, and our culture is a very pervasive one, and it's one of really trying to bring solutions to problems. That's how I see it.
Not only are we out there listening and meeting customers' needs, but we also have a history of sometimes meeting needs you didn't even know you had.
Today, most of DuPont's best-known brands are ingredient brands.
The use that got it most widely known was Teflon-coated cookware in the kitchen, and that was a group of visionary people with tremendous marketing sense, although they had been trained as chemists and engineers. In the very early 60s, saw that the same properties that made industrial materials not stick to it would also make oatmeal not stick inside of a saucepan, or an egg not stick to a fry pan, and so forth.
We were very fortunate that DuPont invested in the leadership
in technology and innovation and the scientific base that we have when they invented Nomex 30 years ago and Kevlar 25 years ago. And really, these brands have revolutionized people's lives. Nomex was discovered 30 years ago, and Nomex is our inherently flame-resistant fiber. And it's worn by firefighters, military fighter pilots, race car drivers, electric utility workers. It's also used in keeping cities lit. If you look at electric transformers, it insulates those transformers.
I'm an inventor of one of the world's strongest fibers, Kevlar. I started the work in 1964.
Kevlar is 25 years young, as we like to explain to people. It is a super strong fiber. In many cases, we've heard it be called a miracle fiber. It makes the ordinary extraordinary. It makes the impossible possible. It's used in applications such as ballistic vests. If you look here at this example, this is a ballistic vest, or a bullet-resistant vest, probably as it's more commonly referred to, that a police officer wears.
Kevlar is 5 times as strong as steel. It's used in ski, racing, in helmet, golf, tennis rackets, bullet-resistant vests. I'm still working for DuPont. Every day is a new learning experience.
You are going to love this house. As you can see, it's hardly been lived in.
Corian countertops are created for
cooking. I don't think the woman knew how.
Corian's virtually stain-proof, so you can...
And the bathroom, immaculate. No kids, no pets.
And Corian surfaces stand up to...
They must have been a quiet, elderly couple.
DuPont Corian, created for life.
You've got, you know, marble and granite on the one side that's out there. It's been around for thousands of years. And then you've got laminate that sells for maybe 1/10 to 1/15 of the cost. But yet laminate is actually more stain resistant, easier to clean, more hygienic. And then you got Corian that comes in right in the middle. It brings the durability and the imagery of a stone type product and the hygiene, and the cleanability, and the practicality of a laminate product.
Is my little precious hungry?
Nothing has more lives than a DuPont Stainmaster carpet.
What we did is we kind of jumped over the ingredient brand fence here a little bit and went to the American consumer and created a brand identity for a carpet made of our materials, our nylon, but we marketed it as DuPont Stainmaster Carpet, so that the American public really feels that DuPont makes the carpet, not necessarily just making the ingredients that go into that carpet.
From a marketing standpoint, ingredient brands pose some special challenges. It's critical, for example, to choose your partners carefully.
So you better pick your partners well. And because we do a pretty good job of that at DuPont, folks want to be our partners. They want to be associated with DuPont. They like the fact that they can talk about DuPont on a business card or in their literature, because that projects the connection, right, to one of the world's great companies.
Because of the unique nature of the host-ingredient relationship, even the best partnerships experience strains.
There's a dynamic tension between the holders of strong trademarks and brands and the people who bring those brands to market for them. The more you're successful and the more you help other people be successful, the tougher the relationship can be, because you're kind of stealing their thunder.
Meeting the needs of the consumer is another challenge.
When you have an ingredient brand, it's important that the final product meet the needs of the user. And how do you do that if you're just one ingredient in a larger series, a larger system, or a larger number of components?
And yet another hurdle is making sure the message you communicate is consistent.
When you have an ingredient brand, it's used in a wide variety of niche markets. So you have a lot of territory to cover. It's always a challenge to make sure that the message that we're using for the overall Kevlar brand is still consistent for a police officer versus a canoe owner versus a Boeing aircraft company.
But when you do it right, as DuPont usually does, there are some definite advantages to being an ingredient brand.
And the beauty of being an ingredient brand instead of a finished product brand is that I can be an ingredient in lots of stuff, right? Whereas the more you're known as a finished product brand, that limits your capability to move over and be a finished product brand in a totally different category.
The ultimate sign of success just might be when an ingredient brand becomes perceived by consumers as the primary brand.
We were able to take ingredient products that were considered to be almost commodity products, fiber, chemicals, and take that and position it in a way to today's consumer where they felt they were buying a Stainmaster carpet actually manufactured by the company who was supplying the ingredients when we are in fact not. But in the long run, that became successful for everyone along the value chain. We were able to move ourselves from a commodity position into a branded position.
DuPont's brand management success is due in part to a strategy that is both long-term and big picture.
I think one of the key strategies with any successful ingredient brand is to focus on the future and where you're going.
One way DuPont stays focused is by adhering to a set of branding principles.
There are 5 principles that we follow in our DuPont brand management. First of those is personality management. And what that means is really understanding who is DuPont and what are those key associations out there that we want to drive so that when people think of DuPont, aha, these are the things, this is what I associate with DuPont.
The second one has to do with visibility. And visibility is really the key to connecting that invisible ingredient with the marketplace so that there's some awareness. And through that awareness and familiarity, you can create for those manufacturers that buy our products differentiation.
Another principle is target management. And target management is really about understanding who do you want to talk to. We have lots of constituencies. If you're a product brand, you may have a more narrow group of customers or consumers that you're talking to, but with the DuPont brand, we've got consumers that we talk to, customers, investors, media, educators, a whole range of people.
So you've got personality, visibility, targeting, and then you've got market management. And essentially what that means in branding and in managing a brand, be it DuPont or anything else, has to do with understanding the dynamics of that marketplace.
Reputation management is really based around the principle that you're going to have a reputation whether you manage it or not. And so DuPont really since back in the 30s took a very active approach to managing its reputation.
That includes protecting the many DuPont trademarks.
And we have very active global programs to make sure that we are always proactively looking for misusers of our trademark and also promoting proper use of our trademark from anyone around the world who is using it. And that's probably one of the most critical aspects of brand management.
Such vigilance is not surprising, considering the value of the DuPont brand names.
When you look at the recognition of the DuPont oval and the DuPont name worldwide, in many cases it's greater than the recognition of the Kevlar and Nomex trademarks. They also carry very different values. The core values of the DuPont brand complement very well the core values of the Kevlar and Nomex brands. So they help bring a level of instant credibility to our customers when they buy a product.
Another important aspect of managing the DuPont brands is a thoroughly integrated marketing strategy.
It's not simply putting a product on a supermarket shelf and then running some advertising. It's a wonderful challenge in terms of how can I use all the different tools that are out there to connect with the populations that might have an interest in this product, given the situation that most of these products you can't see, they disappear.
We have high-level messages around what are the core values of the Kevlar brand or what are the core values of a Nomex brand that we communicate consistently across segments, as well as more specific product information and technical information that we communicate to those particular end uses or those particular market segments.
An important component, especially for DuPont Automotive Finishes, has been the sponsorship of champion NASCAR driver Jeff Gordon.
Being able to see the DuPont oval go around that track is the best advertising we could do because it associates it with people we're trying to get to, which is mainstream consumers. And it's been difficult for us sometimes in some of the businesses because we are intermediates. We don't actually physically sell the product that people buy, like TiO2 or something like that. But to get closer to them, to get an understanding of what DuPont the company is, and then maybe be able to tag off some of the other brands of products that we have.
DuPont's ingredient brand strategy also emphasizes business-to-business marketing.
There's a reason that you're buying from me. You're buying from me because I'm there when you need me to be there, and you're keeping me at the bleeding edge by asking me to be better than the other person. And so in that regard, that creates real value in the industry that you participate in. So I think creation of real value, not manipulative margin or whatever you can get into, or this over-dependence, that doesn't sustain itself. What sustains itself is that we're partnering because we're creating more value. We're building together.
DuPont Stainmaster utilized the integrated communications strategy for maximum impact.
We built the Stainmaster brand in the day when television was more affordable and there wasn't quite as much clutter in that marketplace as there is today. And today it becomes very expensive and it's much harder to develop a brand through television. We've also used newspaper, we've used shelter publications, special interest publications, and we've also done quite a bit at point of sale, where we have worked with the retailer in helping him through cooperative advertising programs.
The point of purchase and co-op promotions were triggered by the results of a brand awareness survey.
If you have DuPont Stainmaster prominently displayed in that store, then 90% of the people who walk into that store are going to recall their predisposition to that brand. If it's not there, then there's only 25% of the people who are going to recall any disposition that they have about the brand during the shopping process. So if you can get the brand prominently displayed, get the retail environment to promote it, they're going to have much more success in closing the consumer because you'll have more of them that will be able to remember their predispositions and use that in the selling or the purchase process.
Stainmaster's TV ads took an up-close and personal approach, a DuPont first.
The DuPont Stainmaster advertising took DuPont out of the ivory tower, so to speak, and brought it into the living room of America because we used humor, we used family situations, we used children, we used slice-of-life type things to show how the use of Stainmaster in your home could make your life better.
Do certain women possess a beauty secret you do not? Yes. DuPont Certified Stainmaster Luxura Carpet. It's richer, it's thicker, and it's Stainmaster.
As DuPont moves into its third century and a new millennium, it continues to emphasize research and development, breakthrough technologies, and the new products that result.
The information explosion, the whole information superhighway, the internet, PCs, cellular phones, all of this that's been going on at this incredibly accelerating rate over the last dozen years or so, bring very difficult challenges for the electronics that go into all of those things. And as they get smaller, electrical energy generates heat. So you need insulation, both heat and electrical insulation. And you need it to put it in a smaller and smaller package. Even if it's just a component of a component, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and lighter and lighter and lighter. As this has happened, some of the wiring and the circuitry in these things have also gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, so you need a Teflon that can be coated rather than a solid plastic that can be sheathed on an electrical contact or electrical connection. You need something that can be painted on in the most efficient way possible.
Corian, which was originally developed in a garage, is a good example of DuPont's long-standing commitment to R&D.
They made the decision to stick with it and invest in it and lose money for a while. So, which is really the history of a lot of our products. Right, they're so advanced and we're creating markets, really, whole new categories for the most part. I mean, you can go over and over, Teflon, Kevlar, Lycra, you know, Corian being one. We create the category, and you're into substituting for things that folks have used for years and years and sometimes centuries, like in a kitchen countertop, right? Things you prepare food off of. And you have to demonstrate and educate and substitute, and it's very, very difficult work. And it's really the heritage, one of the heritages of our business, the DuPont company, I think, to do that.
One area the company is working on is greater cross-utilization of technologies across brands. While DuPont is already known around the world, the company is always ready to take on the challenges presented by new international opportunities.
When you look at physical distribution as we know it here in the United States, and as we know it mostly in this hemisphere and in Western Europe, it's fairly well structured. Somebody produces something and then it goes in trucks and it winds up at distributors or wholesalers, and then it goes to retailers, and then you and I go in and buy it.
A recent trip to the 18th century Russian town of Timichevsk produced a graphic example of how different some markets can be.
It's actually a crossroads, and they have a kolkhoze, which is collective farm, huge collective farm there. And it was about, I guess, 10 o'clock in the morning when we were coming to this place. And there was a large tanker, a tank truck there. And there were farmers coming from all over, tractors, animal-drawn carts, wheelbarrows and so forth, and they had 5-gallon cans and 10-gallon cans. This was their gas station. And we talked to our Russian host about it a little bit, and that's the way they distribute outside of the cities. Between 7 and 7:30 on every other Tuesday, the tanker truck will be here at this crossroads, and people will go out and get their gasoline, their kerosene, their whatever.
Thanks to DuPont's long-standing tradition of innovation, the wheels are already turning.
We can own the trucks. We can form joint ventures and alliances that own the trucks. We don't have to wait until Sears Roebuck comes to Timichevsk.
DuPont is proud of the fact that it just may be the youngest 200-year-old company in the world.
The exciting part of our world is that we've created so many categories, so many markets, so many products, and we are providing value, but we're constantly wearing a hair shirt. We're constantly saying to ourselves, well, that's not good enough. Can we improve this product we've already introduced, or what else is there?